Jan, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am always excited to talk about Bitcoin Ordinals season two and all of these things. So I'm super stoked to be with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate you looking for conversations. Ace and myself, I'm Brian. I don't think I've ever spoken directly with you actually. So it's good to get connected and have a conversation. We're getting started with this series. We're looking to have some different kind of conversations more toward the entrepreneurial or seasoned investor or even a business savvy individual, whether already in crypto or next to crypto or looking to get involved or has been investigating that sort of thing and having that conversation. We're getting started with that. So I thought that talking to you about Xverse specifically and your experience in the whole crypto space and Bitcoin, building Xverse, and just your whole story and what you have to say about that conversation would be an interesting place for us to go, and appreciate you coming and joining with us.
No, absolutely, man. I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. It's important to spread the message, and more content is always good. More content is always good. So, I know how hard it is to get these things started. So I always want to support you guys and anybody who wants to do such a thing.
Yeah,
Th-
appreciate that.
Thank you very much, man. Means a lot.
So Ace,
Nice.
introduce yourself briefly. My background, I've been in the crypto space for about 3 years now. This past year, I've started to get involved with some different projects, and I've been working most recently with Arch Network, who's building on Bitcoin. And I've known Ace for a few years. We were uh, the first thing I got involved with him was the Coffee Junkies, an old project from 2021 around coffee, just kind of a community project type thing. But I'll let you introduce yourself and talk about like just your background, and then we can kind of dive into the conversation and get to Jan and talking about Xverse and everything.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in crypto for almost maybe 7 years. I've been pretty heavy within the NFT space over the past couple of years. But but this current year, I've been pretty heavily involved within airdrops. I've been like farming like no hell tomorrow. Prior to that, I've been in the Web2 space, and I've been involved within ad tech and the mobile app space. I scaled a ad tech startup to over a billion impressions, and I also launched a mobile app that I scaled organically to 10 million installs. And now most of my full time job is just within, or I guess, degenning within crypto now.
Very nice. Very nice, guys. Yeah. Pleasure to be with you guys. So I can also briefly introduce myself. It's actually interesting. I've been observing crypto for quite a while. Obviously, unfortunately, didn't start buying Bitcoin heavily when I first learned about it. Probably it was like 2016, 2017 when I actually bought my first Bitcoin on Coinbase. Um, didn't buy a lot, unfortunately, because I didn't know what the fuck am I doing. But that was kind of the time when I started to observe crypto, and I kind of dismissed the Web3 altogether because in 2017, everything I saw in Asia, because I've been living in Asia for the past 10 years, and many of the things, many of the projects that I saw popping up in the ICO boom in 2017 kind of really looked pretty scammy to me. Many of them even approached me to work with them, but the way they approached me and the way they approached kind of business building and brand building didn't really speak to me at that time. And so I kind of completely dismissed it. And I was like, no, I'm never going to work in crypto. I'm just going to focus on the Web2 side of things and build startups there, invest into tech companies there. I have an extensive experience in that area where I've been working with different entrepreneurs for the past decade, building programs, accelerators, incubators, working for family offices and investment funds, and even trying to build stuff on my own, in that realm of things, actually have an experience starting a mini company. I don't call it a startup because it was a fully bootstrapped company in the e-commerce world. That was kind of like my entrance into entrepreneurship. And so I did that, had a small win in a form of an exit, even though it wasn't a huge exit, but it was a small win. And so that's something that I've been doing for basically more than a decade now. But going back to crypto, I dismissed it in 2017 because I felt like, oh shit, this has no fundamental value. It's just like people trying to basically pump and dump coins. And obviously, that was the wrong thesis, right? I wasn't educated on it. I only saw the surface. And that basically led me to kind of missing out on a couple of the bull markets that happened since then. However, things changed for me in 2020, late 2020, maybe 2021, like mid 2021, when I obviously started to see more of the NFT craze and the growth in there. And so I started playing around with that and not necessarily like buying everything at first because I didn't have that much crypto at the time, or like didn't even want to spend like $30,000 on a JPEG at that moment because I really didn't know anything about it, right? Like I didn't know anything about NFTs when things were kind of like getting started. But I was listening to people and I was like learning about it. And I kind of like developed my thesis that these things are actually pretty cool. They represent culture, they represent community ownership, they represent ways that we could actually solve some of the issues that existed before in some of the kind of community driven I don't want to say necessarily businesses, but just community driven projects. I felt like NFTs could actually empower communities to do a lot more, to incentivize people to contribute a lot more, and stuff like that. And so I really got sold on that thesis, and so I started to get into it. Obviously, we didn't have ordinals at the time. We didn't have anything on Bitcoin at the time that would kind of represent that beyond obviously just the OG projects like the Pepe's, etc. But I started playing around with Ethereum stuff. And then, kind of long story short, one thing led to another. My very close friend, Trevor, who actually brought me, he's one of those people that brought me into this space. I mean, there were a couple other people that were influential in my journey into crypto, but, I've known Trevor for a very long time. And he's one of those guys that have been kind of like telling me like, yeah, you should look into this. Like you should do this. Like you should talk to X first. Like you should talk to Ken, who is the founder of Xverse. And so I did. And I did talk to Ken more than 2 years ago now. It's maybe 2.5 years ago. And I really felt that there is something to it. Nobody really cared about Bitcoin at the time. Nobody was really talking about it as the future at the time. Everybody was kind of laughing at us when we were even trying to develop this thesis that Web3 is going to become relevant on Bitcoin in the Bitcoin ecosystem. But I really felt that opportunity was amazing, and I was kind of aligned with the vision, with the mission, with kind of the fundamental focus on building the best wallet for that next generation Bitcoin ecosystem, meaning that you are going to be using your wallet to connect to marketplaces, to connect to different dApps and platforms, and you're going to be putting your Bitcoin to work, either obviously L1 or even the L2s. And so, like long story short, decided to join the team pretty early on. I didn't start a company. Ken is our founder. He started the company probably 3.5 years ago. But when I joined Xverse, it was a very tiny company. It was very, very small because, again, at that time, nobody believed in Bitcoin Web3 that much. And there was not really much stuff that you could do. And so when I joined the company, it was very tiny. And then the rest is history. Like soon after I joined the company and I worked with the team to kind of develop the strategy, go to market strategy, and even like the positioning and kind of also the pitch for Bitcoin Web3, then basically things started to happen. We started to see the talks about ordinals and, basically, how it played out. We jumped into it very early on, both on the community side of things, started the ordinal show, started to kind of create a lot of content, educating people, but also with the product and Xverse, we basically decided when we saw it, I mean, that was a no-brainer decision because we have always wanted to do Bitcoin Web3. And so when we saw ordinals and when we saw the community forming around these digital artifacts, it was very clear to us like, oh shit, like this is the thing that we have to do now. And so we jumped on it basically within couple weeks since Ordinals like started to be a thing on Twitter, we launched the first support of Ordinals. We're the first wallet that actually brought, I would say, the best user experience. Even today, I don't think that there is anything better to Bitcoin and to Ordinals. And you know how it played out. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to monologue for 35 minutes. But this is kind of the story of me getting into crypto, getting into Bitcoin, getting into Xverse, and kind of why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah,
We
thanks. Great
Yeah, we
intro.
had so many questions to ask you, but you started answering them yourself. So that's perfect. But if I had to ask you a question, meaning what exactly is your role with the next verse, and what is your day-to-day operational role? Like, what are your daily tasks that you basically do?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I get I get that question quite a bit. I mean, my official title is CSO, Chief Strategy Officer, but to be honest, like to me, it doesn't really mean much because in startups, you end up doing a lot of things. And as I said, I joined the team very early, and so I day to day I do many different things. So obviously figuring out the product strategy, working very directly with the product team, even like making sure that we hire the right people because like before we actually hired, right now we have like two people, head of product and another like senior product manager. But when I joined the company we had nothing. We it was just me and Ken, and then maybe another person for marketing, and then the rest were just engineers building the product, obviously a designer, etc. But we really had not much going on at the time. It was a very tiny team, and so my role is obviously help figure out the strategy, observe the market, figure out what are the next big things that we should focus on, where the Bitcoin ecosystem is going, because ultimately we're building the ecosystem wallet for all of these assets, be it L1 assets, L2 assets, or everything else that is going to come to the ecosystem in the future, with obviously the conversation around OpCat and all of this thing. There's just so much going on. And so like I'm trying to make a sense of all of that and trying to set up the right priorities for the company, for the product, obviously hire the best people. So I am also involved in like hiring the marketing, the growth team, basically just finding people that are passionate about this new, I would say, new season of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin season 2, the Bitcoin Renaissance, and trying to fit them into the company to make sure that we can obviously onboard a lot more people, we can educate people, we can create a lot of content. And so when you actually look at the team that is kind of public facing at Xverse, like I basically brought all of those people into the company because I kind of handpicked them. I've been observing them, what they're doing, what kind of stuff they're doing in the community. And I always love to hire from the community, especially when it comes to, growth and marketing right now, because it's so important. Obviously, in the future, we may end up hiring people that are maybe not even from the industry, but they bring other skill set that is also important for growing the business. But right now, because we're still at the beginning, I love hiring people that are from the community, that show the passion, and they're even willing to learn, because like I didn't know much when I just started with Xverse either, right? So like I'm very kind of open-minded in this sense. And so like, yeah, hiring the team, building the best team, obviously working with the team day to day to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, everybody is motivated, everybody has everything they need to do their job the best. And then beyond that, obviously working, you guys know it. So like I run the Ordinal show together with Leo and Trevor, also technically Bitcoin with Tyler from Taproot Wizard. So create a lot of content, trying to contribute to the community as much as I can, try to connect people inside of the community. I do personally even invest into projects. You mentioned Arch. I also invested in Arch, a small angel check. Obviously, I'm not a huge investor, but like a small angel check, and try to connect the dots and help these other builders to thrive, because I think that's really important. Um, and uh, and yeah, focus on stuff even like business development, partnership, fundraising. So I wear a lot of hats. Just because the team is not that big, we're still trying to be as lean as possible. And we hire a lot of people, but most of them are on the engineering side, because obviously the product is what matters the most. So I don't know if this answers your question, but there's so much going on every day in the business that, like, the crypto game guys, like it's nonstop 24/7. It doesn't stop during the weekend, right? And so there's always something to do. And I'm just super passionate about what we are building here. That, like, I'm just grateful that I can even be in this position today.
I got like two questions. One was mainly how to keep yourself organized, meaning there's stuff going on so fast, meaning crypto is just such a fast-paced environment, meaning how do you keep yourself organized? And the second part is what are key things you look for when you're building a team?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I mean, organization, it's something that I always struggle with, and I always need to get better. And we're actually getting some more people on the team for this reason, right? So that people can actually help you execute. People can help you. You can delegate stuff to people because you cannot do it all by yourself. Like many people give you credit for doing everything, but obviously that's not the case. There's always a team. There's always a bunch of people that make that product happen, that make that success happen. And so organization, again, in crypto, I think it's very difficult because, as you said, things are moving so quickly. You have to make compromises every day. Like, you would like to do 20 different things, you would like to focus on 35 different things. Like, there's new L2s and new protocols coming up every week, every month, and you would like to support them all, but that's not possible just because you have limited resources. And so you have to make some sort of sacrifices. You have to make sure that you choose the right priorities. And it's hard. Like, I don't really have a silver bullet. Like, I think in crypto and in a company like ours, there's always something more to do. And that always leads to kind of the fact that you're not 100% organized all the time, because there is new information that comes to market every day. And so you kind of have to filter that. And so that will always lead to certain level of like, okay, shit, okay, like, yeah, we need to maybe refocus again. Like, we need to come back to the basics. We cannot get distracted by everything. But ultimately, you get distracted from time to time just because there is so much more information coming to the market every day. But I love that. Like, it's kind of like a little bit of chaos, but I think a little bit of chaos is good. At the same time, like, I think if you are just like operating under super strict rules, that like you have a plan, you never change it, you just try to stick with it, like, that would also mean that you lose a lot of opportunities and that you're not going to be able to act on stuff like what we did with ordinals and runes. Like, we had a crazy roadmap before ordinals came to be, right? But we decided to shift it and to change it overnight just because we saw that the potential is there, right? And so the organization is important, but also the open-mindedness and the fact that you can act on things quickly is also very important. And that means that sometimes you have to make an educated guess, right? Like, you're not always going to get it right. Sometimes you're going to make a decision that is false. You're going to maybe start working on a project, on a feature that maybe turns out not to be that popular, and it's just because sometimes you have to take the leap of faith and kind of like believe in yourself, and maybe just like take the limited information that you have just from Twitter or from the community, and just act on it, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but like, it's always a chaos. You have to do as much as you can, but at the same time you have to uh do take steps that maybe are not 100% guaranteed. So that's kind of like what you will struggle with as a founder in Web3, or even as a contributor to the Web3 ecosystem. And then the second thing, what do we look for, right? Like, when we're building a team, as I said, I already partially answered that question. Like, for the growth side, things are mostly about, obviously, marketing and education. And I really look for passion. I look for people that maybe they don't have the experience, maybe they don't have the CV that people would be like, okay, this person has not worked in a, let's say, quote unquote, a proper company for the past 3 years, or he or she doesn't have like a full CV of experience when it comes to Bitcoin and this. Like, that doesn't matter, because like, we're so early in this ecosystem that nobody really has that experience that you would on paper look for, right? Like, nobody actually has fucking 15 years of experience building on Bitcoin, like, because there was no building on Bitcoin before, really. Like, yes, there was some Lightning stuff, there was some like RGB, there was some like other ecosystems, but those ecosystems are so tiny that there's not even that many people that actually have that experience, right? And so that stuff doesn't matter to me at all. What matters is like, I want to see your passion. I want to see some sort of level of consistency. Like, when I see some people doing great stuff on Twitter, it doesn't mean that like we hire them immediately. Like, I like to observe people. Like, some of the hires that we have made is that like I kind of like see that people are doing a good work. I like their vibe. I like the content they produce, and I watch them for like 4, 6 months, right? And if they keep doing it, if they don't give up, and I see that they have this level of consistency and passion that they just want to fucking persevere no matter what, even though everybody calls ordinals that, they're still kind of pushing out content, educating people, and this, and that to me is like a tell that they really care. And they're not just doing it because they have a bag, or they're not just doing it because it's short term a cool thing to do because everything is pumping. And those are the kind of people that obviously I would love to interview, and I would love to talk to in a little bit more detail. And so there's like a bunch of these things, but I think the passion, the fact that you are consistent, especially again, we talk about marketing side of things here, and growth side of things, and the community participation is very, very important, to me. And obviously for engineers, it's a different story. For engineers, you need to look at the, technical abilities and stuff like that. And, for the product people, you need to look at the fact that, do they understand the market? What is their previous experience? Again, are they passionate? Like, can they actually make sense of what's going on in Bitcoin, even though they didn't work in Bitcoin before? But you can test for those things pretty quickly and pretty easily, just because we're so involved and we talk to people all the time. So there's many different things that you have to look at depending on what kind of positions you're hiring for. But to me, the passion and consistency and the common sense is really most important.
Yeah, that's great. I was gonna ask, I mean, you're kind of leading into this a little bit as you're, talking about focusing on individuals and building a team and stuff, pulling from the community. That's so, like native to Web3, a lot of the different projects, you said your background and kind of like what brought you back to that long-term decision to get involved in the space, um, is on that like community involvement side. So I kind of feel like a lot of your answers are going to bend toward that. And honestly, that's my entire experience of interacting with you and your involvement with Xverse. Ace asked me like what your role was with Xverse, and I didn't really know. It's I mean, early 2023 when I got involved with the Bitcoin space, Xverse was around, and I think that like I immediately noticed that you're involved with them because you're one of those more like forefront like public facing people. So a lot of the community bend toward things is kind of like where a lot of people go. So I guess the question, like, how do you think about ensuring that you're connecting properly from like your product standpoint? You wanted to build Xverse to be a true Web3 product. Obviously, it's a wallet. You could get into just getting stuck in the tech. So aiming toward community and answering that question, like how do you really think about connecting properly from like that product standpoint to the community? Is it primarily through content or different interactions and platforms, or like smaller settings like this? I know Xverse also does like IRL settings with the different events. You were interviewed by what was it, Girl in the Verse recently at an Xverse
Yeah.
booth. Yeah, so I'm sure like all of that kind of stuff is involved, but I was just curious to hear you talk a little bit more about like how you think about that whole approach to connecting to make sure that your product is landing properly, or even like different pivots or decisions that are made based on that, gathering information or whatever from the community.
Yeah, I mean, man, I think it's a great question. And I think, I alluded to it previously that, again, like we watch the space, we talk to people like yourselves. I talk to users every day. People tweet at me every day, and they, give us feedback and they give us suggestions. And, we sometimes run some pools as well, even though like those pools are probably bought it, most of them. So it's like very hard to kind of understand like if it's organic behavior or if just people are trying to push certain things, on the timeline. And so, these things are kind of hard. but ultimately you have to really watch the space. You have to talk to your users, to your customers, and as I said, like at the end of the day, you have to take some leap of faith and you have to try things, right? And the good thing about startups is that if your setup is pretty lean and effective, then you can just test it out. You can launch a feature and see what the response is. And if it doesn't work out, then okay, just move away from it, or maybe you don't focus on it so much anymore and you try something else, right? And so our roadmap is always full of things. There is obviously like very big projects that we're working on for months and months, like be it some of the L2 support and stuff like that. That's something that you cannot launch overnight. Some of the bigger things, for instance, like we're working on like an advanced UTXO management for all Xverse users to make sure that you can make sense of all of your UTXOs. You can consolidate, you can split, you can batch transfer ordinals, runes, you can do all this stuff, basically from one platform, because this is very a big pain right now. People have to use like 13 different platforms to actually like be able to do stuff with their ordinals and even rare sets and stuff like that. And this is a work in progress. Like, you kind of say like, hey, this is very important. Everybody knows that this is important because you get complaints every single day on the timeline that people struggle with this. But to get to the point where you can say like you have covered all of the things, it's going to take a year, right? Like, but we're going to start with like a first version that is very simple. We're going to solve one problem first, and then we're going to add additional functionalities to solve like three other problems. And we kind of listen to people. We see what the usage is, if people actually care, and then we can expand on it and make it better, right? Like one example is we launched this like CPFP app, which means that you can already RBF transactions in your Xverse. So let's say you need to speed up a transaction because the block fee went up, immediately because of some mint, and you need to send Bitcoin, you need to send this, you need to pay for something because otherwise you're not going to be included in that rune mint, or you're not going to be included in that mint for ordinals because you're going to miss the window. And so you can already do RBF. We also introduced the CPFP, which is basically you can now speed up any transaction that is even incoming to your wallet, right? So let's say somebody sends you something, let's say you claim an ordinal and somebody is sending you that ordinal, then you can actually speed up that transaction from your wallet, as long as it's related to your wallet. And, a lot of people use this stuff, and a lot of people need it. And it's clear because, like, it's a big pain because sometimes, degens, things like happen immediately within a couple blocks, and you need to be able to react dynamically to the situation. And so we launched that, people use it. And so now we're basically saying, okay, let's double down and let's make it even better, you know? And so really it's a work in progress, always work in progress. Many things don't exist on Bitcoin yet. There's a lot of problems that we are, yet to be able to solve. But again, like you listen to the community, you listen to the users, you launch something, you A/B test, and you basically double down on things that you see that people really care about. At the end of the day, you cannot satisfy 100% of the people 100% of the time, right? Like there's always going to be something that you're going to miss. There's always going to be something that another company will do a little bit better, because that's just the nature of startups. You cannot do it all the time. But we really try to just listen to people and see what's up, and double down to make sure that we basically satisfy most of the users, if not 100%. We try to satisfy maybe 95, 98% of the people, basically, 98% of the time, and so that's the goal. That's how we can become, let's say, the most used and the number one Bitcoin wallet, period. Like right now we're number one for all of these things like runes and ordinals and all of these different things that are happening. But we got to keep on growing. The ecosystem is going to keep on growing. And so as I said, like satisfying 98% of the users 98% of the time is the way to go.
And solving a problem, adding support. I love the approach to, the supporting at a team level. You were talking about how you're in crypto startups, which, being at Arch, I'm sure it's the same in every single one. It's just all hands on deck all the time. And I feel like crypto is just that way in general. You just jump into doing everything and everyone's supporting everyone in whatever role, right? So And when it comes to like the value proposition that you can bring, most of it is just like showing up, being excited about whatever it is that's being built. And you could really tell when people aren't there and don't, or are uh don't really care. People that are there that don't really care about what's being built, or they've lost the focus or whatever. So the follow through comes from the energy, and ultimately the community staying connected in these ways to the team building. I mean, this Web3 whole experience, I think is there's no better way to like to be targeting your approach. So it's great to hear. We appreciate you coming. I think there's one interesting question we want to wrap up with, and it just kind of gets back to like reflecting on the opportunity. We talk about being early all the time. I think everybody
Yeah.
it, right? So this is kind of like in the heart of being early, because ultimately, like you do come to these points where it's like you feel like, man, this new thing, it is early, or launching this new endeavor. You get that new or that old feeling back where we feel like we're here again. So just wanted to wrap up with, I mean, if you could go back or just in that mindset, like what's a singular piece of advice that you might give someone entering into crypto, whether it's their very first time or like this next upcoming cycle, or just like that mindset of it's early, like what's the most important thing or single piece of advice that you wish you had or you'd give someone?
Yeah, like I think the advice that I would give to people is the advice that I would give to myself, right? Like basically all the biggest misses that I've had in crypto. And of course, again, I'm not trying to say that you can always hit it all, right? Like you're always going to miss 95% of everything that's happening in crypto just because there's so much going on. And there is like new coin, new chain, new product, new this, new sexy little thing basically popping up every day. So, like, I don't think the intention here is to say that you're going to be able to capture it all, but ultimately, some of the biggest misses that I've had, even in the ecosystems that I am focused on 100%, even in Bitcoin, right? Be it some of the early, things like, I definitely missed out on bitmaps. I missed out on, the early BRC20, even though I hold a bunch, and stuff like that right now. But basically, I missed out on some of these things just because I was maybe too influenced by a group of people around me that were like saying, oh, this is bullshit. This is never going to do anything. This is just like not a great tech, whatever. And so I think, looking back, and that's something that I'm doing now moving forward, is like just basically being open minded about stuff. And again, you don't have to hit it all. You should not strive to hit it all, but you should basically at least try to educate yourself and not rely too much on like what other people say, and just like take it for granted, take it for that's the fact, and just move on, right? Like turn it into your own opinion without spending any time trying to understand it, right? Like so if you take that time, or if you're open minded, again, doesn't mean that you're going to hit it all the time, but at least you're going to be able to build your own thesis, build your own kind of perspective on things, and I think that's the most important thing, so that's kind of like what I'm trying to do moving forward. Even if people like shit on specific things right now, I'm like, okay, I want to learn more. Like, FUD is cool in crypto, right? So, okay, people FUD it because
Right.
maybe it's not a great tech, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work out. So, I want to learn more about it. Like, why? Like, is it something that I personally would use, or is it something that I personally think could be useful for at least like one or two things, And so that's kind of the stuff that I'm doing, and I think it's a great kind of approach for anybody, especially new people, right? Because you have to learn, you have to study, you have to talk to people, you have to try things out, and the more you try, the better kind of I would say better idea of how things are going to evolve you're going to have.
Yeah, and you learn to be convicted, and like what it really means to be convicted in something, and to be shaken out of some things, that you thought you were convicted in. So, and what diamond hands are, right? So yeah, I love all of the the Web3 mentality, and diving into all of the interests, and meme coins. I hope that meme coin cycle is just continuing, and I hope that runes are really back on the up. I saw some 30% gainers today, I think, Jan. So I mean, I need my dog
Yeah,
to.
things are good, man. Things are looking good. I mean, let's see, right? Like, I like the fact that, I'm in this for the long haul. So I don't really care too much about the daily moves. Like, I'm not a trader. I'm not like buying today and selling tomorrow just because we saw a 30% uptick.
Oh,
I know people do that, and I think it could be a highly profitable thing to do if
I've been
you're
fo-
like really, really good at trading. But I'm not a good trader. As you said, I try to develop conviction into certain things, and obviously I am 100% convinced that Bitcoin Bitcoin ordinals, Bitcoin fungibles, doesn't matter if it's Rune, BRC20 tokens, or the other ones that you like, whatever. Like, obviously, there is going to be a certain level to it. Not all of them are going to succeed the same way, but we know that there is some sort of stickiness to BRC20 tokens just because they're listed on the exchanges, and there is going to be some more innovation going on in the ecosystem. So I think the fungibles on Bitcoin make a lot of sense. And so, that's my conviction, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to identify the best builders, the best communities, the best memes, and obviously try to kind of act on that. Again, non-financial advice. I'm not gonna mention specific projects. People can obviously tell from my timeline, what are the projects that I'm bullish on or not. But it should never be taken as a financial advice. I'm just trying to, you know, kind of approach it as a fundamental believer in this ecosystem. Like, I want to have the best builders around me. I want to have the best communities around me. I want to have the people that I can learn from around me. I want to have, the people that educate other people around me, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I want to support, because I believe that's going to create the foundational pillar for this ecosystem to just keep on growing and keep adding value to everybody who is part of it. So, that's kind of like my way of looking at things.
Right, absolutely, and being involved with the whole building out things like tooling and infrastructure, and like more coming to Bitcoin is where a lot of that excitement is, like happening. Not everybody's involved in all of those conversations, so it's really great to be involved with like the builder side of things, and startup world, and accelerating happening on Bitcoin, and what's going on with Bitcoin startup labs, and Arch has a hackathon we've sponsored ourselves with a bunch of other projects, and it's just super exciting to see what's going to happen the rest of this year. And I mean, like you said, this stuff is not going anywhere. The technology itself, along with the community that's already here, is just going to accelerate what's already coming, and we have just like the bare bones of anything already existing. So I mean, you've got all of DeFi world, not to mention like the content machine of NFT land, and gaming on Bitcoin, you name it, all is being imagined and built like as we speak, uh, on testnet. A lot of it is launched and coming to mainnet by the end of this year. You've got all kinds of stuff. So anybody who's looking to be involved, or I mean, especially for this specific audience and the conversations that we're looking to have, to be building in the space and have that mindset. The time is now, and I mean, I'm super excited. So thanks again, Jan, for coming.
100%.
We appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah,
No,
Jan.
thank you, man.
Yeah, Jan. I greatly appreciate your insight. I just want to say thank you, man. I know it's our first podcast slash space, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and giving us a shot. I look forward on seeing what's next for Xverse and yourself.
Yeah, again, guys, super happy to support. Let me know if you guys are going to do something, if you're going to cut it into pieces, if you're going to publish it online. I would 100% encourage you to do it. We do the same thing with the Ordinal Show and the other things like Twitter Spaces for sure. I think that's great medium, but you have this content now, and it will allow you to grow more if you can spread it across different distribution channels. So, good luck on the journey. I hope you can keep doing these. I think the consistency, as I told you at the beginning, is very important if you want to build your brand, if you want to build your community, if you want to build anything in this space. So just keep it going. Always happy to support. Let me know if you have any suggestions for us at Xverse or whatever, and happy to keep the conversation going, guys.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks again, Jan.
Sounds good, guys. Take care. Have a great
Yeah.
one.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.